Let me be honest with you about something most people never talk about. You are not avoiding conflict because you are lazy. You are not avoiding conflict because you do not care. You are avoiding conflict because somewhere along the way, you learned that speaking up leads to pain. Maybe someone shut you down. Maybe someone left. Maybe the moment you tried to express how you felt, the room went cold and you stood there wishing you had just stayed quiet. And so you did. You stayed quiet. Again and again and again. But here is what that silence is actually costing you. You smile when you want to scream. You say I'm fine when everything inside you is falling apart. You agree to things that drain you. You let people cross lines you drew privately but never spoke out loud. And the longer this goes on, the more you start to feel invisible. Not just to the people around you, to yourself. That feeling right there, that slow erosion of who you are inside a relationship, that is one of the most painful human experiences that nobody talks about openly. Because from the outside, everything looks okay. You show up, you keep the peace, you hold it all together. But on the inside, you are exhausted. Now before we go further, I need to tell you about something we have linked in the description below this video. It is a program designed for exactly the kind of person watching this right now. Someone who is done just getting through their relationships and is ready to actually transform them. Research consistently shows that people who invest in structured guidance around communication and emotional intelligence see results in their relationships far faster than people who try to figure it out alone. We are talking weeks versus years. The people who act on this today are the ones who tend to see the biggest shifts. So if you feel pulled toward it, check the description. Now let us get back to what you really came here for. Here is a truth that changed everything for a lot of people who were once exactly where you are right now. Conflict is not the enemy of connection. Avoidance is. Think about the last time you swallowed something that bothered you. Maybe it was something your partner said that stung. Maybe it was a friend who consistently canceled on you. Maybe it was a family member who made a comment that you replayed in your head for days but never addressed. You told yourself it was not a big deal. You moved on. Except you did not really move on, did you? You archived it, you stored it, and now there is this invisible wall between you and that person, and neither of you can fully explain why things feel just a little bit distant. That is not drama. That is not sensitivity. That is what unaddressed tension does over time. It builds invisible walls brick by silent brick. And here is the part that breaks people when they finally see it clearly. The people you are most careful around are the people you love most. You do not walk on eggshells around strangers. You do not rehearse conversations before talking to your coworker about lunch. You reserve all of that anxiety, all of that careful editing of yourself for the people who matter to you the most. That is not protecting them. That is protecting the version of the relationship that you are afraid to disturb, and that version is already suffering. Let us talk about what avoiding conflict actually looks like in real life, because it does not always look like silence. Sometimes it looks like agreeing with something you completely disagree with, and then silently resenting the person for it. Sometimes it looks like laughing at a comment that actually hurts you and then going home and feeling hollow. Sometimes it looks like saying okay in a tone that means anything but okay, hoping the other person picks up on the signal so you never have to actually say the hard thing out loud. This is called passive tension. And it is one of the most corrosive forces in any relationship, because it creates distance without explanation. The other person can feel it. They just cannot name it. So they start pulling away too. And suddenly two people who love each other are living parallel lives in the same house, wondering what happened and too scared to find out. Studies in relationship psychology consistently show that couples and close relationships that avoid difficult conversations report significantly lower satisfaction over time. Not because of the conflicts themselves, but because of the pattern of avoidance around them. The problem is never the problem. The pattern is the problem. Now here is where something shifts. Because the people who learn how to face conflict with intention, not aggression, not force, but genuine, honest presence, those people experience something remarkable. Their relationships do not fall apart. They deepen. The conversations they were most afraid of become the conversations that brought them closest together. And they often describe it as finally being able to breathe inside their own life. Imagine what that would feel like for you. Imagine having a conversation you have been afraid to have for months. You say the thing, clearly, calmly, without attacking and without shrinking, and instead of the explosion you feared, instead of the coldness you dreaded, the other person looks at you and says, "I've been feeling the same way, and I didn't know how to say it either." That moment happens more often than you think. But only if someone breaks the silence first. That someone can be you. Here is what nobody tells you about the people who are naturally good at navigating hard conversations. They were not born that way. They were not raised in some magical household where everyone communicated perfectly. Most of them spent years doing exactly what you are doing now. Swallowing things, shrinking back, keeping the peace at the cost of their own voice. The difference is, they learned a different way. They learned that conflict done with care is not destruction, it is construction. Every honest conversation is a brick laid in the foundation of a real relationship. Every avoided conversation is a crack in that same foundation that grows a little wider every single day. And the fascinating thing about the people who have made this shift is how quickly their lives change. Not gradually over decades. Quickly. Within weeks of changing how they handle difficult moments, they report feeling more connected, more respected, more themselves. Because when you stop editing yourself for everyone else's comfort, you stop being a ghost in your own life. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Let us talk about the cost because this part matters deeply. Think about the last year of your life. How many conversations did you avoid? How many things did you hold back? How many nights did you lie awake processing something that you never actually processed with the person who needed to hear it? What did that cost you? Not just emotionally, think about the mental energy you spent, the sleep you lost, the joy you missed because you were carrying something that was never meant to be carried alone. Now multiply that by the next 5 years if nothing changes. That is not meant to scare you. It is meant to wake something up in you. Because you deserve better than a life spent carefully managing the feelings of everyone around you while quietly abandoning your own. Here is another thing the research tells us clearly. People who consistently avoid conflict do not just suffer in their relationships, they suffer in their health. Chronic suppression of emotional responses has been linked to elevated stress hormones, disrupted sleep patterns, weakened immune function, and higher rates of anxiety and depression. Your body keeps score of every swallowed word, every forced smile, every moment you chose silence to keep someone else comfortable. You were never designed to carry that alone. Now let us flip this entirely. Because this is where it gets real. The people who have done the work to change this pattern do not just have better relationships, they have better lives, they sleep better, they make clearer decisions, they feel more energy because they are not spending it suppressing and managing and editing. They feel genuinely close to the people they love, rather than performing closeness while feeling alone underneath it. They stop attracting the same painful patterns over and over, because they are no longer sending signals that say, I will accept less than I deserve. That is the ROI of doing this work. And it is staggering when you actually look at it. One skill, one shift in how you show up in difficult moments, and it ripples through every single area of your life. Your relationship, your self-respect, your mental health, your sense of identity. All of it changes. But here is the thing that most people miss entirely. Knowing this intellectually is not the same as being able to do it. You can understand everything we have talked about in this video and still freeze the next time you are in a difficult moment with someone you love. Because understanding and embodying are two completely different things. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people stay stuck forever. And it is not your fault. That gap exists because you were never actually taught how to close it. Most of us were taught to manage conflict, suppress it, survive it. Not to use it as a tool to build something deeper. That is the skill that changes everything. And before we wrap this up, think about where you are right now. Think about the relationship in your life that could most benefit from what we have talked about today. Picture how that relationship could look 6 months from now if you actually did this differently. The conversations you would have, the closeness you would feel, the version of yourself that finally stopped editing and started living. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is a decision away. The program linked in the description below this video exists for the person who just had that thought and does not want to let it fade like all the others. Most people will watch this, feel something shift, and then do nothing with it. That is just the reality of how this works. The rare few who actually act in this moment, who take the feeling seriously before the day swallows it up, are the ones who look back a year from now completely transformed. If you are still here, still watching, still feeling the weight of what we have covered today, that is not an accident. That is your own awareness telling you something. Do not ignore it this time. Go to the description. Your relationships are worth it. You are worth it.